gentlemen, self-control. Why is self-control important? Let me first talk to you about why is self-control important, then we'll go on and dichotomize self-control itself, and then at last we will talk about how to increase self-control. So, self-control. Why is it important in this world to have self-control? My argument and my side of the debate would be it's important because we live in the world of abundance. Previously, we used to live in the world of scarcity. Like if a person craved sugar in the prehistoric times, in the ancient period, then he would have to go to the jungle, find orange tree, as per se, and then eat the sugar, right? Then satisfy his craving for the sugar, eat the orange. And how much of calories do you think is in a orange, or let's say 5 oranges or 10 oranges? Not many, right? In this world, however, if one craves sugar, one can simply go to the shop. He does not even have to go to the shop. He can simply order a biscuit or an ice cream or anything. It's so easy. It's so accessible. If a person wants, he can literally eat himself to death. He can literally eat himself to death. Like obesity, hypertension, diabetes, they are like obesity, let's per se. Right? What is that disease? Is that disease not the disease of abundance? In the prehistoric times and in ancient period, the people who found the calories, like let's think about it, right? In the world has changed. In the age of scarcity, the one who found most amount of calories to eat was the one who was the most successful and had higher rate of survival, because he didn't literally starve and die. But now, if one always indulges in his craving for sugar and other food, then he can eat himself to death. That's why self-control is important. That's why it's important, because our biochemistry and our biology is wired for survival. And in the prehistoric times, food meant survival, craving meant survival, the one who got the food meant survival. Now it's different. The one who can avoid eating too much, the one who can practice self-control and say, no, this much ice cream is today enough for me today, we'll eat it some other day, we'll survive. But the times have changed, but we have not really changed, because we have not stopped craving ice creams, we have not stopped craving things. Same with the information. Information was scarce in the prehistoric times. एउटा गाउँमा कतैपट्टि भोज भतेज भइरहेछ भन्ने इन्फर्मेसन एउटा मान्छेले थाहा पाउँछ भने त्यो मान्छे त्यो भोजमा जान्छ, खान्छ एन्ड सर्भाइभल, राइट? तर त्यो एउटा इन्फर्मेसन हो कि होइन, त्यो भोज भइरहेछ भन्ने एउटा इन्फर्मेसन हो नि, होइन? तर अहिले इन्फर्मेसन अबन्डेन्ट छ, इन्टरनेट खोलेर हेऱ्यो भने हजार थरी कुरा द्याट विल लोड अफ योर माइन्ड्स, गिभ यु स्ट्रेस एन्ड स्टफ, राइट? हजार थरी कुरा हुन्छ सबै। अब इन्फर्मेसन अबन्डेन्समा चाहिँ तिमीलाई कुन इन्फर्मेसन चाहिन्छ भनेर सेलेक्ट गर्न सक्नुले जित्छ। अब जसले सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल प्र्याक्टिस गर्छ, द्याट पर्सन विल विन। That's why self-control is very important. There is infinite amount of information available. Know how to select the information that you need and then ignore the ones that you don't need. अहिले त ओरियो छ नि त, होइन? 10 रुपियाँमा एउटा ओरियो आउँछ क्यारे। 10 रुपियाँ एउटा बच्चाको नास्ता खाने पैसा पनि 50 रुपियाँ हुन्छ। 5 वटा ओरियो खान थाल्यो भने उसले दिनको। Think about the health implications of it, right? The world has now changed, but we have fundamentally remained the same. Like, we have to understand that our biochemistry is the same. We have not stopped craving sugar, because not craving sugar would work in that prehistoric times when sugar was scarce. Now craving sugar won't work because sugar is now abundant, right? So self-control is important, because you can scroll as much. There is infinite amount of content available in the internet, infinite amount of reels, infinite amount of music, infinite amount of movies, infinite amount of YouTube videos. Know which one to watch and which one to not. And to control yourself from watching from the infinite catalogs of movies and music, to control yourself from watching only those that you need, and to control yourself from eating only things that you need and enjoy, you need self-control. So self-control is very important. My argument is pretty straightforward and simple. There might be other arguments, right? For example, it's very important to have self-control to be successful in life, right? Because भोलिपट्टि केही इक्जाम छ लेट्स इक्जाम इज नट इक्वल टु सक्सेस, आई नो द्याट, त्यसको बारेमा भिडियो नि बन्ला कहिल्यै, तर वाट आई मिन इज भोलिपट्टि इक्जाम छ अनि तिमी युट्युब चलाउन थाल्यो भने त इक्जाममा त गुल्टिएन होइन र? सो विल कम टु दिस एक्जाम्पल वान मोर टाइम. सो अब भनिसकेपछि सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल इम्पोर्टेन्ट किन हुन्छ भनेर त इस्टाब्लिस गरियो. नाउ लेट्स टक अबाउट सेल्फ कन्ट्रोलको डाइकोटोमाइज गरौँ है त, कस्तो छ सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल भनेर. आई से थिङ्क अबाउट सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल एज फर बिङ अ फाइनाइट रिसोर्स, लाइक अ बार काइन्ड अफ थिङ क्या. लाइक पेट्रोलको टङ्की, लेट्स से 10 लिटरको पेट्रोलको टङ्की, एउटा मान्छेको 10 लिटरको पेट्रोलको टङ्की, लाइक बाइक चलाउन पेट्रोल चाहियो, 10 लिटरको पेट्रोलको टङ्की छ, त्यसमा 10 लिटर तेल पेट्रोल मजाले भरिएको छ. It turns out that self-control is a diminishing resource. That means the more you exert self-control, the less self-control you will be able to exert in the future. It's little different from what we think it is, right? 10 लिटरको तेल छ बाइकमा, अब उसले 10 किलोमिटर, लेट्स से 100 किलोमिटर चलायो, 5 लिटर तेल सकियो अरे है, 5 लिटर मात्र बाँकी छ. अब उसले ट्राभल गर्न सक्ने डिस्टेन्स 100 मात्रै हो होइन र, 100 किलोमिटर मात्रै हो. सो इट टर्न्स आउट जतासुकै सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल एक्जर्ट गरेर पनि काम छैन. सो आई से पिक योर ब्याटल्स. कुन ठाउँमा सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल एक्जर्ट गर्ने, कुन ठाउँमा सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल एक्जर्ट नगर्ने थाहा हुनुपर्छ. त्यो थाहा हुनुपर्छ र त्यही अनुसार काम गर्नुपर्छ. हामीले यो 10 लिटरको ट्याङ्कको कुरा गऱ्यौँ नि. नाउ देयर आर फ्यु थिङ्स द्याट टर्न्स आउट डिक्रिजेस. त्यो 10 लिटरको तेल भयो भने पनि त्यसभित्रको तेल घटाइदिँदो रहेछ क्या, सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल घटाइदिँदो रहेछ. देयर आर फ्यु थिङ्स. नम्बर 1, स्ट्रेस. As it turns out, the more stress you take, the more amount of self-control you can exert. अब यसको empirical evidence or anecdotal evidence चाहिँ मैले कसरी दिन सक्छु भन्दाखेरि, let's say you have exam tomorrow. भोलिपट्टि एक्जाम छ अनि अब यदि तिमीसँग म्यानेजेबल अमाउन्ट अफ स्ट्रेस छ भने त you will enter the flow state and study and do good. तर if तिमीले खेप्नु परेको स्ट्रेस is more than the manageable amount, अनि त्यो भइसकेपछि के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि यु विल बी इन स्ट्रेस. अनि त्यो स्ट्रेसको कारणले चाहिँ यु विल एन्ड अप स्क्रोलिङ थ्रु रिल्स, म्युजिक, वाट एभर. यु विल स्टार्ट स्क्रोलिङ थ्रु सोसल मिडिया इन्स्टेड अफ स्टडिङ, बिकज यु हेभ स्टप्ड प्र्याक्टिसिङ सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल, बिकज यु क्यानट सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल नाउ. किनभने स्ट्रेसले चाहिँ के गर्दो रहेछ भन्दाखेरि 10 लिटरको तेल तिम्रो टङ्कीमा 10 लिटरको तेल भरि छ भने हल्का घटाइदिँदो रहेछ क्या त्यसको तेलको एमाउन्ट. अनि तेल कम भएपछि त गाह्रै पर्छ नि त. कुराकानी त्यही हो. नम्बर 1 इज स्ट्रेस. नम्बर 2 इज इमोसनल रेगुलेसन. इमोसनल रेगुलेसन, इट टर्न्स आउट द्याट द मोर यु रेगुलेट युर सेल्फ इमोसनली, द लेस अमाउन्ट अफ सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल यु विल बी एबल टु एक्जर्ट. भन्नको अर्थ कस्तो भन्दाखेरि, लेट्स से यु आर एङ्ग्री एट समन अनि द सोसल कन्डिसन्स अर यु हेभ टु बी नाइस टु द्याट समन. द्याट्स वाइ यु क्यानट रियली बी एङ्ग्री द्याट्स वाइ यु क्यानट रियली सो योर एङ्गर टुवर्ड्स द्याट समन. त्यो भइसकेपछि तिमीले के गर्छौ, आफ्नो एङ्गरलाई सप्रेस गर्छौ. जब तिमीले आफ्नो एङ्गरलाई सप्रेस गर्छौ त्यो बेला इट टर्न्स आउट त्यो इमोसनल रेगुलेसनले कस्तो गरिदिँदो रहेछ भन्दाखेरि तिम्रो चाहिँ सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल चाहिँ अलिकति घटाइदिँदो रहेछ. एन्ड इट टर्न्स आउट एङ्गर, इफ अब म एङ्ग्री छु भने अनि मैले त्यो एङ्गर चाहिँ एक्सप्रेस गरेँ, अब मैले भने छैन कि जाऊ सिधै गएर ल्यान्ड अ पन्च इन्टु द्याट पर्सन्स फेस भनेको होइन है, उसको नाक भाँच्दियो भने होइन. देयर क्यान बी द वेज, देयर क्यान बी मेनी वेज विथ विच यु क्यान एक्सप्रेस अर कम्युनिकेट युर एङ्गर विथ अ लिटल बिट अफ एलिगेन्स एन्ड फिनिस. मेनी पिपल डु सो. मेनी पिपल डु कम्युनिकेट देयर एङ्गर विथ इन अ भेरी पोलाइट म्यानर. यु क्यान डु सो, यु क्यान लर्न टु डु द्याट. तरिका चाहिँ त्यही हो. अब इमोसनल रेगुलेसन, इट टर्न्स आउट, अब लेट्स से यु आर एङ्ग्री एट समवन अनि यु डो नट एक्सप्रेस द्याट एङ्गर, अनि त्यो एङ्गर चाहिँ भित्रभित्र बोइल भइरहेको हुन्छ एन्ड यु गो एन्ड इट आइसक्रिम अर यु. द पोइन्ट इज आइसक्रिम इज जस्ट एनालोजी हियर. द पोइन्ट इज तिम्रो सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल अलिकति घटिदिन्छ. सो 2 थिङ्स, स्ट्रेस एन्ड इमोसनल रेगुलेसन. डज द्याट मिन यु सुड नेभर रेगुलेट योर इमोसन्स? आई डोन्ट थिङ्क सो. आई से पिक योर ब्याटल्स. जुन बेला तिमीलाई लाग्छ इमोसनल रेगुलेसन इज नेसेसरी, इमोसनली रेगुलेट. तर हेबिचुअली इमोसनल रेगुलेसन चाहिँ अलिकति यु हेभ टु थिङ्क अबाउट इट. सो दुईवटा कुरा, स्ट्रेस, अभोइड स्ट्रेस. स्ट्रेस इज अफकोर्स ब्याड, राइट? स्ट्रेस इज अफकोर्स ब्याड. नो अनम्यानेजेबल अमाउन्ट अफ स्ट्रेस क्यान turn out as bad in many ways. Manageable amount of stress can help you get into flow state and work. So I think that kind of stress could be good, but let's not go there. किनभने 10 मिनटको भिडियो यसै हुनेवाला छ, 20 हुन्छ, 20 मिनट गफ भनेर केही हुन्न हैन. सो द पोइन्ट इज इमोसनल रेगुलेसन एन्ड स्ट्रेस. अब त्यो त बुझियो, तर एउटा एन्सेन्ट विस्डम छ क्या, एन्सेन्ट फिलोसोफिकल विस्डम. कस्तो भन्दाखेरि मेडिटेट इन्क्रिजेस सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल रे. हाम्रो एन्सेन्ट इस्टर्न वेस्टर्नमा पनि अलिकति थियो, इस्ट वेस्टर्न फिलोसफीमा पनि अलिकति थियो. द वान हु मेडिटेट्स, इट्स बिन फाउन्ड द्याट द वान हु मेडिटेट्स has higher amount of self control than the one who does not. What does this mean? It is true, we'll get to it at the end. Tara, the thing is, yes, meditation increases self control a little bit, but let's understand this. अब कस्तो हुँदो रहेछ भन्दाखेरि 10 लिटरको टङ्की छ हैन, तिमीले के गर, त्यो 10 लिटरको टङ्कीलाई निकालेर फाल्देऊ, 20 लिटरको टङ्की जडान गर आफ्नो बाइकमा, बाइक मोडिफाई हैन. इट टर्न्स आउट त्यो टङ्की नै ठुलो छ भने, त्यसमा 20 लिटरको तेल अटाउँछ भने, यु क्यान ट्राभल मोर डिस्टेन्स, यु क्यान प्र्याक्टिस सेल्फ कन्ट्रोल इभन मोर हैन र. अनि इज द्याट नट गुड? 20 लिटरको टङ्की, योर क्यापासिटी हेज इन्क्रिज. सो इट टर्न्स आउट त्यो चाहिँ भयो हैन. अनि हाम्रो दिमागमा चाहिँ एउटा एन्टिरियर एसिसी छ क्या, एन्टिरियर लिङ्गुलेट कर्टेक्स. एन्टिरियर लिङ्गुलेट कर्टेक्स. It turns out what that part of the brain is responsible for doing is monitoring the internal conflict. What does monitoring internal conflict means? कस्तो हुँदो रहेछ भन्दाखेरि अगाडि आइसक्रिम छ, and one part of you really craves the ice cream, one part of you really wants to eat that ice cream, it's your comfort food, you want to eat it, but another part realizes that ice cream equals to diabetes, hypertension, obesity. So one part of you does not want to eat it, one part of you wants to eat it. So there is a tug of war in between you, there is a conflict, there is a duality. And it turns out, if you are aware of that duality, if you are aware of that internal conflict, if you are able to monitor that internal conflict, then it turns out you automatically have self-control. So what self-control is just the ability to monitor conflict. And this monitoring of conflict is done by the area in your brain called ACC, anterior cingulate cortex. Anterior cingulate cortex, ACC. And I said cingulate, right? Sorry. Anterior cingulate cortex. So it turns out, if you are just aware of yourself, if you know what's going in here, if you are aware of the conflict in your head, it turns out you can practice you can practice self-control. And like, lack of self-control is really slavery. Don't you think that? Like, you are not the master of your own destiny, you are not even the master of your own self. That's slavery, right? So self-control is very important. And it turns out, let's think what meditation really is. Meditation is sitting down and being aware of your own thoughts. Meditation is knowing thyself. The ancient philosophical wisdom, know thyself. Meditation, if you have ever meditated, you will realize that when you sit down, meditation is just literally noticing your thought, not judging your thoughts. It's sitting down and noticing that there are thoughts in your head and you are different from your thoughts. Just being the watcher, just being the observer of your own thoughts is just meditation. And think about, meditation can be a little complex than this. Let's not go there. Meditation can be a separate topic for another video. But the point is, meditation increases self-awareness. When you are self-aware, you are able to monitor your internal conflict. When you are able to monitor your internal conflict, when you are able to notice the tug of war within you, then it turns out you can choose in any way that you want. You are not really constrained by the lack of self-control. You have self-control. It's not that self-control leads to, no, it's not that awareness leads to self-control. It's not that monitoring internal conflict leads to self-control, but it's that monitoring internal conflict is self-control. Awareness is self-control. Awareness leads to clarity. Clarity, when you are clear, you are in control of yourself. When do you lose self-control? When things are fuzzy, when things are not really clear. So that is the thing. And let's relate to the empirical and the anecdotal things, right? Stress and emotional regulation. As it turns out, this study, that anterior ACC wala study, anterior cingulate cortex wala study, that monitoring internal conflict wala study, as it turns out, is cohesive with the anecdotal and the empirical things that I said previously. Hamro emotional regulation र stress, think about what's happening to you during stress. You are not really in focus of how you're feeling, how what's going on within you. When you are stressed, you are focusing on an outside world. You are focusing on the source of stress. You are not focusing in what is the source of stress doing to you. You are focusing on the stress. भोलिपल्ट exam छ, टन्न पढ्नु छ, you are overwhelmed by the amount of content that you have to study, by the syllabus. अनि त्यो बेलामा चाहिँ you are not really focusing अहिले के गर्नु छ, and you are like not really aware of your own thoughts in that time period. You are focusing, you are thinking exam fail भयो भने जिन्दगी बर्बाद, blah 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 blah. त्यही भएर चाहिँ you lose that monitoring, you stop monitoring internal conflict and you lose self control, and then you scroll reels, हैन र. अनि as it turns out, emotional regulation, think about what's happening when, let's classic example of anger. When you're suppressing the anger, what are you doing? You are suppressing anger. That means you are suppressing some part of the brain. You are not really noticing, you are not really aware of your own anger. You are suppressing it. When you are suppressing, you are exerting self control and you are diminishing self control, right? So that is something that I like to say about it. And that ancient philosophical wisdom of know thyself, be aware, leads to it. All of it leads to clarity, and clarity helps you do more things, be control of yourself. So know thyself. Also, watching YouTube videos about self control does not really increase self control. Kinabhane, when you are watching YouTube video, you are focusing on outside. When you are focusing on outside, you are not really aware of your internal conflict. When you are not really aware of your internal conflict, you don't really have self control. उत्तर तिमी भित्रै छ, खोजेर त हेर.